Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to WordStream's Account Structure 101 webinar. Presenting today will be myself, Leslie Senior, and my two colleagues, Margot DeCunha and Billy McCaffrey. The three of us are all members of our customer success team here at WordStream, and each of us are completely AdWords and Bing certified. Also, we always like to have themes for our webinars, so today's webinar theme will be taking you back to school 90s style. So we do have an agenda that I would like to briefly go over. First, we'll start with an introduction to account structure. Then we'll show you how to create a campaign from scratch. We'll point out some major red flags when creating a campaign. We'll also go over different structure strategies as well as show examples for various industries. Then we'll go on to discuss ongoing account restructuring. And finally, we will conclude with a question and answer session. Also, you're able to chat in your questions as we go. However, we will wait to answer all of your questions for the end of the webinar. So now we do have a brief introduction to account structure. So every account structure needs an account structure to function and work properly. Within an account structure, there are 5 parts. We have campaigns, ad groups, keywords, ads, and landing pages. Today, we'll go ahead and walk through each part of the account structure and how they relate to each other and how each is relevant within an account. Keeping a strong account structure is very important for many reasons. So we want to make sure the searches you are coming up for are relevant for your customers. Also, better account structure means better quality score. The more relevant the keywords and ads means higher quality score for you. Also, we're always looking to optimize performance. Also, strong account structure keeps everything organized. An organization is key to making and monitoring successful changes within an account. So now, if we move on to this next slide here, you can see exactly how account structure is laid out. First, we have our account. And within that account, you have campaigns. And then with each campaign, there are various ad groups. And then those ad groups need to get populated with keywords, which will go ahead and correspond to specific ad text and landing pages. So now we'll go in depth with each of those components I just mentioned. First, we have our campaign. So your campaign should be a fairly broad theme. Then you can see that the settings you make at the campaign level seep down into every aspect of your advertising endeavor. Creating an intelligent campaign structure can help you to target the right people, save money, and have better control over your advertising message and spend. Next, we have our ad groups, and those are created under the campaign level. And you can start there by choosing a more specific topic that corresponds to your campaign. Finally, our keywords, and there are words that are semantically related to each ad group. And we do suggest having about 20 to 30 keywords per ad group. Next is ad text. We create new ad text using our step-by-step guidance in the Ad Builder wizard. And then finally, we end with landing pages. And these should be where your users land. Using our landing page editor, you'll be able to track landing page conversions, automatically report those conversions to the appropriate parties in your organization, and extract segmented lead lists.
Great, thanks, Leslie. So if you're starting from scratch, it can be pretty overwhelming, especially if you're new to AdWords or just unsure of how to structure your account. Luckily, WordStream makes it easy to build out an entire account from scratch without leaving the software. Of course, before building out, you'll want to decide the ideal way to structure your account to help you most easily manage, maintain, and grow your account to result in a great return on investment. The first step to creating a successful PPC campaign is structuring it correctly. And later in the presentation, Billy is going to walk us through some structure strategies. But first, I'd like to show you how to build out an account in WordStream's PPC Advisor. I'd first like to point out that anytime you want to build something such as a new campaign, ad group, or even something as small as adding a keyword or negative keyword, you'll want to make sure you're in the Manage PPC section of the software, which I'll point out in just a second. Before building out, it's important to set up your default settings, and these settings will be what the software refers to whenever you create a new campaign, ad groups, or keywords, which is why setting them up is super important to save time and increase productivity. So now I'd actually like to jump right into the software in order to show you exactly how to set up your default settings as well as build a new campaign from scratch. All right, so here we are. This is the first screen you see when you log into your WordStream software, the PPC Advisor software. The first thing, like I said before, you want to do is navigate over to Manage PPC, which is found right here next to the 20-minute work week. So I'm going to click on that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate over to, this is called my campaign tree. So this is on the far left-hand side of the screen. And I'm going to make sure I have my AdWords campaign, the top level of this campaign tree selected. Then from there, I'm going to navigate right into this dark gray toolbar into default settings. So I'm going to select that. So this is where those default settings that I was just talking about before, this is where you can set these up. So there's a few that I'd like to point out. The first one is making sure that you're in the search network. So typically you're going to want to be only on the search network or the Google and search network. You typically don't want to be in display as well because you want to keep your display and search campaigns separate, and I'll go into detail of why that is a little bit later in the presentation. You can also decide your daily budget. So this is referring to the daily budget of your campaign. So maybe picking a budget that you most typically use, but you can also change this later on if you have different daily budgets for different campaigns. Next, you'll want to make sure to set up your language targeting. So if I wanted to, for example, also target Spanish as well as English, I would just hit Edit, and then I would find Spanish down in the list. I would just select it, and then I pull it over using that arrow key and hit OK. You can also set up your location targeting. So you want to, of course, make sure to target the areas that are relevant to your business, where you offer your products or services, or where just you see the most conversions. So you're going to hit Edit to set those up. And right now we're targeting the U.S., but we're excluding California. You can exclude areas as well. So if I wanted to, for example, maybe also exclude the U.S. If I wanted to also exclude, for example, maybe Alaska, I would just select Alaska, and then I would pull it over using that arrow key, and you'll see now we're excluding Alaska as well as California, but we're targeting the rest of the U.S. You can also set up your default max CPC bid here. So this is referring to the bid that you have set up for each keyword that's added into your account. You're automatically defaulted to a penny, but typically you're going to want to set your default max CPC a little bit higher just so that when you add a new keyword, if you forget to set up that specific keyword CPC, then it won't be only set to a penny because a penny won't really bring you any traffic. So right now we've changed this to $1, but you can customize that to, depending on your business and how competitive your keywords are and what you typically use. And then the last default setting that is important to take note of is this match type setting. So you're going to be defaulted into adding keywords on broad match. So every time you add a new keyword, it will be added on broad. If you typically use modified broad or you have a preference of what you want your default to be set to, you can change that here. And you can do the same for single word and multiple word negatives as well. Once you're happy with those settings, you'll go ahead and just hit save. And then those will be what the software refers to when you do anything going forward building out. All right, so now let's actually start building out a new campaign from scratch. For my example today, I'm going to pretend that I am operating a bakery, and I want to kind of make a few campaigns around my products. I just think that's the best way to dedicate my budget since I have specific products that sell a little bit more. So to create a new campaign, I'm going to go into this dark gray toolbar here, and I'm going to select campaigns, and then I'm going to navigate to the Acts toolbar. So that's right below this dark gray toolbar. Whenever you create something new, you're going to want to make sure you're in this Acts section of the software. And then I'm just going to hit Create New Campaign. What you can do, if you have a Bing account set up and you want to create that new campaign for Bing as well, you would just select Add to Both. I'm just going to create one for AdWords right now. And then all you have to do is type in the campaigns you want. So maybe I'll create a few campaigns for my bakery. I'm going to have a cake campaign, a pies campaign, and a cookies campaign. Take note that you can also set up these other columns as well, but you don't have to. It will refer to your default settings. But for example, if I did want to set the status, for example, maybe I want to keep my cookies campaign paused just because we're out of stock right now. All you have to do is use a comma to notify that you're adding in that field, and then just type in pause. And then I'm going to hit next, and you're going to see my campaigns are here. The cookies campaign is paused, pies, cakes, and they're referring to that daily budget of $10 that I set up. And then I'm going to hit add campaigns. And you're going to see that those new campaigns were actually brought into my account. So then I'm going to focus on building up my cake campaign first. So the next step to building a campaign is creating ad groups. So I'm going to make sure I have my cake campaign selected in that campaign tree. Then I'm just going to make sure I'm in the dark gray toolbar. You want to be on that ad groups tab. Then we're going to navigate back into our acts toolbar, and I'm going to hit this create new ad groups. I'm going to keep it to AdWords, but like I said, if you did want to add it to Bing, you could do so. And then I'm basically going to follow a similar process that we just did, but this is for those specific ad groups. So they're going to be more specific topics under my cake campaign. So maybe the different flavors of cakes I sell. So maybe I'll do a lemon cake, chocolate cake, red velvet, and then I would just simply hit next, add ad groups. And as easy as that, those ad groups are now brought. If I put that little arrow down, you can see the new ad groups that we've brought into the account. Then, of course, once you have ad groups, you're going to need a list of keywords for each ad group. You want to keep that keyword list really tightly themed and focused around that theme of the ad group. So for my lemon cake campaign, for example, I'm going to have all keywords that are, focusing on lemon cake. Nothing that's focusing on chocolate cake, because that would be misleading for my ad text. So to create those keywords, I'm just going to go back into this Acts toolbar, and I'm going to hit Create New Keywords, Add to AdWords. And then I'm just going to, if you have a list outside of the software, you can actually copy and paste it right in here, making sure that they're separated by line. But I'm just going to type in a few keywords that I want. And then what you want to do, if you want to keep these keywords on broad match, that's what your default is set to. So they're going to be added automatically on broad match. But if you did want to change the match type, you can do that using just the comma and making sure to separate it by a space, and then typing in that match type you want. And then I would hit next. And then you can see here that I'm adding these 3 keywords. This one's on phrase because I made that distinction. And then I'm going to hit add keywords. And those keywords will be brought right into my lemon cake ad group. You'll probably want to build out this keyword list a little bit larger, but making sure not to exceed 30 keywords. Google suggests keeping your keyword list around 20 to 30. Then once you have your keywords, of course, you'll need ads. So I'm going to go into my ads tab right in that dark gray toolbar. And I'm going to go to that Acts toolbar once again and hit Create New Text Ads. This is going to bring us into the Ad Builder Wizard. This is just a really great area to create ads. It tells you exactly kind of the process of creating them. So first, you're going to need a headline, eye-catching headline that's really focused on the keywords within your ad group. So you can actually see the keywords that we have set up in that ad group right in this section of the tool. And then you can also, type in the exact ad text you want. Have a nice line 1 and line 2 description. Then you can include your display URL and your destination URL. You want to direct them, of course, to that landing page that's super relevant. And then once you've created the ad, I recommend doing a best practices check. This is going to tell you some tips and tricks of how to improve your ad a little bit. So make sure that all of these checks are turned from X's to check marks. So for demonstration purposes, I'm not going to create an ad, but it is something that, it's pretty easy to do through this interface, and if you need any help, with ad text creation, just reach out to your CS rep. All right, so those are really the main steps in building manually. And once you have everything set up, of course I would have to go in and create, probably 2 to 3 ads for each ad group within here. And of course those keyword lists. And then once that was all set, what I would do is just review and post those so they go live into AdWords. So now I'm going to jump back into the software so we can go over some red flags. So now that you know how to build, let's go over these red flags that you might want to identify if you already have a pre-existing account structure in place. The first one is oversized ad groups. So like I said before, Google suggests keeping your ad groups really tightly themed, right around 20 to 30 keywords. You might be wondering why. There are several reasons. So if you have too many keywords, they're simply going to end up competing against each other for attention. All too often, I see clients who have 100 plus keywords in ad groups, but maybe only 10 or 15 of those keywords are actually bringing in traffic. There could likely be too many keywords entering into the auction, and just a few of those are going to be monopolizing the auction within that ad group. And then before you know it, your daily budget is spent, and over 50 of your keywords are just left without any traffic. Also, once you get beyond 30, it's likely that your keyword relevancy to your ads is going down, which is going to lead to a lower click-through rate, resulting in lower quality scores, and therefore, spending more of your money but less business for you. So if you separate these keyword lists and then create ads for those keywords, keyword searches are going to click and hopefully convert if your landing page is relevant as well. So once you get over 30 words, look for ways you could break those lists down and create more relevant ads, or simply pause keywords that aren't relevant to your business or are not bringing in good performance. And the next alert I want to go over is having all keywords set to the same match type. So this is a red flag that I often come across just because having those keywords set to the same match type, it can be detrimental for a lot of reasons. Basically, you're going to be losing potentially a great audience by not utilizing the other match types. First and foremost, it's really crucial to understand how each match type operates. And at a high level, you can see this diagram here that shows you how the match types work. So broad is going to cover the largest volume, but include close variants. So if your keyword is flower delivery, for example, you could also appear for searches like purple roses, flowers, or evening flowers. And then for modified broad, this has to include the keywords in the phrase, but they can be in any order with additional words inserted. So it gets a little bit more restricted with modified broad, but it's still pretty open. And then phrase is going to tell the auction that those words must appear in that exact order, but there can be additional words before or after that phrase. And then exact is, of course, the most restrictive, so it's going to be that exact phrase or keyword. If you're bidding on all broad match type keywords, for example, you're basically going to be getting tons of irrelevant traffic if you don't have good negatives set up. Broad match can work really great for certain keywords, but you just really want to make sure to be staying on top of those negative keywords. If you're bidding on all exact, you could be getting really great clicks, high quality clicks, but in extremely low volume. So the search is being restricted since it's such a specific keyword or phrase that the searcher has to type into Google to make your ad appear. The point is that each match type has benefits and flaws, so it's really important to find a good balance and experiment with a mix of match types to see what gives you good ROI, but relying on just one match type for an entire account typically does not yield great results. The next red flag that I see is campaigns that are targeting both search and display. I talked about this briefly before, but when click-through rates are really low across an account, but I see a lot of impressions, I usually check to make sure the campaigns are not set to search and display. The reasoning behind this is the display network operates in a completely different way than search. Display actually covers about 95% of the web, so if it's not used in a really targeted manner, it can essentially take your ads and show them to website visitors at random on sites that might not even be relevant to your business. And there are several ways to set up a display campaign. And like I said, display campaigns can work really well if you're targeting the right audience, but typically it's best to keep display campaigns separate from search for several reasons, including that display ads are best used with media-rich content. So, ads that are showing images and videos and things of that nature. And they're going to result in a lot more impressions with a much lower click-through rate than search ads, because when people are using search ads, people are not, if you're not using search ads, you're not specifically searching for something, but if you are, you're actually going to Google with an intent to find something, as opposed to display ads. If campaigns are set to both search and display is likely going to monopolize the visibility of that campaign before search even has the chance. This occurs since display has such a large presence and search is much more targeted. I don't want to discourage anyone from using display, but I definitely recommend building out strong search campaigns first and then making sure those are set up and running correctly. To make sure that your campaigns are not set to both search and display, you're going to want to go into Manage PPC and then select the campaign that you want on that campaign tree. So right over here in that section of the software. And then from there, you're just going to want to go into that display network area and make sure it's disabled. All right, moving on to the next red flag, duplicate keywords. So duplicate keywords are a huge red flag just because they're not only going to compete against each other, but they're actually going to spend your budget doing so. So the easiest way to deduplicate your keywords is with our new deduplicate alert. This is found in the 20-minute work week, which is on that first screen when you log into the software. And this alert goes through each campaign in your account to ensure that you have no duplicate keywords. So when you're going through your work week each week, make sure you deduplicate any keywords that you have running. Take note that if you have the same keyword on a different match type, that does not count as a duplicate. You're just going to want to make sure to bid higher the more restrictive you get. So bid a little bit higher on exact than you would on phrase, for example. If your settings are set to include close variants, which they most likely are, Google is also going to include plurals and misspellings. So also go through and make sure that you don't have a ton of plurals or misspellings set up. It's just really not necessary. And the last red flag that I want to go over is not having enough campaigns. So I've come across several accounts that have hundreds of ad groups, and they're all falling under the same campaign. This typically stands out as a red flag to me just because ad groups should typically be divided amongst a few campaigns. I wouldn't say there's a magic number of ad groups per campaign. This is just going to really depend on your business. But the best way to decide when a new campaign is necessary is based on budget. So campaigns really give you an easy way to control your daily budget across your ad groups, keywords, and ads. Typically, I recommend having a higher budget for campaigns that are more of a focus. So for example, if you sell women's clothing, and dresses tend to sell a lot more online than pants, in this case, you'd want to have separate dresses and pants campaigns, giving dresses a higher daily budget to get more visibility since these keywords convert at a higher rate. The same goes for a location. So if you target various locations, but one location is much more profitable than the others, you might want to have a location-specific campaign with a higher budget. And Billy's going to dive in a little bit deeper with these specific examples in just a few minutes. There are also scenarios when having one campaign will do. So, for example, I have a client who operates a very small business, and with a really small business, she only is focusing on selling one product through AdWords. So in this case, she only needs one campaign with about 4 ad groups under that campaign since her account is very targeted. If you start creating several campaigns and you have that really small budget, you could stretch your budget too thin. So make sure to find the right balance for your business that goes along with your PPC goals and budgets. And now I'm going to pass it along to Billy.
Thanks, Margot. Now, as we've been talking about, there are various different structure strategies that you can utilize, but there isn't necessarily one specific best way to structure your account. The importance of your account structure really lies in being able to make your account as easy as possible to manage, and it also matters, kind of what your business model looks like. You want that account structure to make sense for you and your business, and you want it to have a natural flow. Some examples of different strategies are to structure by your website, by your products, by location, or by budget. I'll explain each of these briefly and give some examples as to why these might be beneficial to you based on your business goals and your paid search goals. So one of the easier ways to structure your account is simply to reflect your campaign structure based on the navigation of your website. If you have specific sections or categories in your site navigation that someone can travel to, create a campaign and ad group structure that mirrors that navigation. This way you can create ads and direct users to specific landing pages based on the breakdown of your site, which will allow you to target searchers more accurately and also best track performance of those specific products, categories, or service offerings. This method is fairly simple in that you're essentially just mimicking the section of your site, so you don't really have to think too hard about how you want to build out your campaigns. Your campaigns could be an overall theme of your product or your service, whatever it may be. And the ad groups within those campaigns would be more specific facets of that more broad campaign theme. Along the same lines as structuring your account based on your website navigation, you can also structure based on specific products or service offerings. So, oftentimes the navigation of your site kind of lends itself to the way that your product line is set up as well. So these two can kind of almost blend together. You could potentially have one ad group per product or service offering in order to keep those ad groups as tightly themed as possible, and you can also most effectively communicate specific offerings in your ad text. If you have varying product categories, those categories could represent your campaigns, and as mentioned earlier, each ad group would be a specific facet of your campaigns, and the same can be implemented if you offer a service or a product. So, whether you're product-oriented or service-oriented, this concept can work for you. For the majority of people, structuring your account by your website navigation or by your product or service line will work, but for some folks out there, it's not necessarily the way that you'd like to set up your account. And one way you can think about structuring is by location. While your website navigation and your product line tend to be based more on your specific business goals rather than your business model, structuring by location can be extremely beneficial as it really allows you to optimize each campaign based on your specific locations that you target. And you can also track more accurately which locations happen to be best, and you can utilize something like a geo report in order to be able to really dive down into your analytics there. Businesses also tend to structure by location if they want to include geo-modified keywords, such as a keyword that includes a city, a state name, whatever it may be. Or if they have offerings exclusively in specific locations, it makes sense to be able to structure by location that way as well. Structuring your account by budget is also a good option if you have specific product or service offerings, or if you have certain locations that you want to spend more or less money on. By segmenting based on budget, you allow yourself to more specifically delegate where your money is going to be. Much as Margot mentioned earlier, if there's a specific product or service that performs really well compared to others, it makes more sense to allocate more budget to those products or services and kind of put less of an emphasis on the products or services that aren't quite as popular. All right, so let's take a look at some examples here of how these structure strategies could come into play. So the first example here is a retail company, and we'll kind of reiterate here what Margot mentioned earlier about working in a bakery and having different products that you like to offer your customers. Many retail companies structure their accounts based on their website navigation or product offerings. In the example of the bakery, we may have separate campaigns for cakes, cookies, and pies, and even if they have numerous brands, flavors, or other types of options. Those are great and really clear-cut ways to be able to set things up. Another option, based on the number of products within your product line, is to have just one campaign with a specific ad group for each product within that campaign. So if your product line isn't quite as vast, maybe you're just a small business offering, kind of more simplified services or products, it makes sense to, still break things out into the proper segmentation. But you don't have to go crazy trying to build out as many campaigns and ad groups as possible. sometimes it's actually it's easier to be able to keep things as simple as you can. If you are a business that maybe ships both domestically as well as internationally, splitting your campaigns by location will actually help to communicate specific shipping discounts, deals, or prices in your ads rather than having to use generic messaging, that could potentially work but isn't exactly as specific as it could be. Similarly, in this situation, sometimes different products are available only in certain locations. So this would allow you to really separate those different products into different campaigns and ensure that the appropriate demographic is seeing those products only. For example, if a shoe business sold worldwide, they might want to show ads for summer products in warmer locations and winter products in colder locations. You certainly wouldn't want to show snow boots to somebody living in Hawaii. And as we discussed previously, structuring by budget allows you to best allocate your money based on how you want to spend it. Let's take another example here. Let's say we are a cell phone carrier, and we recognize that iPhone products are a lot more popular and have a better return on investment than Nokia products. This is a perfect example of allocating more budget towards those iPhone products, as there's a lot more search volume for them. And that way you can put less of an emphasis on Nokia, and it's important to separate those, as you wouldn't want the iPhone products to kind of cannibalize the budget and really not give Nokia even a chance. So you want to be able to segment those properly and give Nokia its appropriate budget. All right, so let's move on to our second example here. We're going to take a look more like a services-related company here. For a services company, you obviously can still set things up the way that your website might be structured, using some of the methods that we've already discussed here, but this time you'll obviously just structure that more towards your services as opposed to a product line. Some service companies also prefer to structure maybe by location, because the service offerings can actually differ depending on the location. We'll take the example of a law firm here. If a law firm has offices in certain areas only, they may want to break those locations out into their own campaigns so that they can create ads that really speak to searchers directly in those areas. Whereas other campaigns might want to communicate messaging more relevant with simply having someone call or fill out a form, and that there isn't an easily accessible office location that the company is targeting, so it makes more sense to capture that lead over through the website. Targeting by location also allows you to tailor your offers and better track your performance data based on those offers and locations. That same law firm might actually decide to structure based on budget if they feel like this is the most beneficial way to set things up. For example, if we know that Social Security disability consultations are more sought after via search queries than maybe, say, bankruptcy cases, it could be beneficial to segment those services out into separate campaigns so that you can really allocate the proper funds towards the more sought after services. Keep in mind that setting up your account one time really isn't enough. It isn't really a set it and forget it type of concept. You want to keep your account fully optimized and performing well, and you want to be sure to consistently maintain your account. There are definitely steps you'll want to take in order to maintain that proper ongoing account structure. We'd recommend reviewing ad group sizes and specific ad group themes on a regular basis, especially if you consistently add new keywords, manage your negatives, and change your bids. You want to make sure that all campaigns and specific ad groups are really performing well. A good course of action would be to firstly review all ad groups for size, ensuring that keyword lists are not getting too excessive within each ad group. If you start to see that your ad groups are getting above that maximum number of 30 keywords, it's likely that some of those keywords really aren't getting any attention for search queries there. So while you do this check and you happen to see that some of your ad groups are a little bit bloated in size, think about whether or not they really do fit in that specific ad group, or whether or not there's opportunity to split those ad groups out further. You can also try things such as changing the match type or bid in the keywords, or perhaps just simply pause the keyword if it's not performing and it doesn't really fit anywhere else. Also, if you are a business that happens to constantly change up its product line, or maybe introduce new services, it makes sense to update that in your account as well. You want to be able to create new campaigns or new ad groups depending on how your product or your service offerings update as well. Essentially, you just want to groom your account on a fairly regular basis, ensuring that it's neatly organized and easy to manage. As I mentioned, you really want to avoid a bloated account. It's tough to navigate through. You're going to be looking at more time spent trying to manage your account, so I usually always recommend to keep it as simple as possible and to keep it as clean as possible. As you can see here, that we've been discussing, there's really numerous options when structuring your account, and oftentimes more than one strategy can work for your company or your business. It's really more so about what type of organization is really going to make the most sense for you and perform based off of your business goals. But really at the foundation of it all, you want to review these steps here to properly build out your account. You want to start with your campaign, and it's going to be a really broad theme based on product, service, and offering, what have you. The ad groups within that campaign are going to be more specific facets of that campaign. And then within each ad group, you want really specific keyword lists that will enable you to be able to create relevant and compelling ad copy. And eventually those ads will point to landing pages that kind of back up and are reflective of what's in your ad copy and your keyword lists. Alrighty, guys. So we've hit the end of the presentation here. We've had a few questions that have come in already, so we'd love to start answering those. Feel free to start typing questions, based on what we've discussed here. And we'll give you guys a couple minutes here to type in those questions, and we'll start answering some right now. First question here, if you have very detailed geo settings, can you copy those geo settings from an existing campaign to a new campaign that you're creating in WordStream? You certainly can do that. There's actually a really simple way to be able to kind of duplicate things, especially in the sense of creating new campaigns that may have unique location settings. All you're going to want to do is copy and paste that keyword right within the grid there when you're in the Manage PPC tab. If you copy a campaign and paste it as a duplicate, it's going to copy over every setting within that original campaign. So, language, location, network settings, all the ad groups and keywords and text ads will all be copied over. So it's certainly possible to easily duplicate a campaign.
All right, we have a question here from Brian. He's wondering about the new search network and display select campaign type. So this is a newer option that Google's released recently, and I think this is actually a fairly decent option to use if you know exactly kind of what display sites you want to target. So it does kind of allocate more of your budget to search, so you won't kind of risk as much your display taking over as you would with those settings that we went into today. I'd still in WordStream make sure you have the display network disabled, but if you want to dig a little bit deeper into display select, that's definitely something that you could work with your CS rep in setting that up properly, but just use caution with that.
All right, we've got another question here. The question is it possible to compete against yourself by having overlapping keywords but divided into tightly focused groups? Google says where keywords overlap across groups, the one with the highest quality score is typically displayed, but should this still be avoided? We usually do recommend avoiding any sort of competition within your own account, even if they are, if those keywords are in different ad groups. They do compete against each other, which actually can drive up your cost per click. You're still forcing Google to have to choose between one of those two variations of the same keyword in order to match with the search query. So it definitely is something that we avoid, that we would recommend avoiding. Now, that does come with one caveat, though. If you do happen to have, let's say, two campaigns where you have, the same keywords, almost going back to that case of, duplicating a campaign for the sake of having unique location targeting, that's actually okay to have the same, identical keywords amongst those two campaigns because they do have, their own location targeting, so the ads are only being shown in those select areas. So in that case, it's actually okay to have duplicate keywords, but not necessarily within the same campaign.
All right, we have a question from Bill here. He's wondering if the website URL should closely match the keyword that you are trying to rank for. So yes, you're on the right track there. So you do want the website URL, including the display URL. So the display URL is basically the URL it's going to show when your ad appears, but then you want that destination URL linking to the most relevant landing pages that applies to your keywords in that specific ad group. So like I said in my example, if you had a lemon cake ad group and then you had all these keywords related to lemon cakes, you would want that directing to the landing page, of course, so it's selling your lemon cake product rather than like your chocolate cake product. And with the display URL, you're gonna want to use the same domain, your destination URL, and then you can actually add a descriptive line at the end of that. So something like, if it was www.lou'sbakery.com/lemon-cake, so something that describes the keywords in that ad group.
All right, I've got another question here. Is it possible to create a new campaign from an ad group that is converted more often than others in a campaign? So typically we recommend if a keyword or a handful of keywords happen to be converting well, we don't recommend moving them into their own new campaign or their own new ad group, whatever it may be. The reason for that is anytime you move a keyword from one ad group to another, that keyword will start from scratch. So essentially it's going to lose all of its historical data. If you do want to segment by the keywords that happen to be performing well, we recommend what's called peel and stick. So essentially you peel out everything that isn't converting and stick them into their own ad group and leave those, those top performing keywords where they are. You don't want to rock the boat. You don't want those keywords to lose any momentum that they might have gained. And it's possible that by taking out those lower performing keywords and putting them into their own ad group or campaign, that they'll actually have a chance to sort of get their legs and perform better.
It looks like we got a question here from Rick. He's wondering if ad group structure, he's saying you propose ad group structure similar to website structure, for example, by product or product group. And he's wondering about benefit-based structure and or customer type structure. So I'm assuming that you're wondering about like if you had different audiences, if you wanted to target those in different ways, if that's a good way to separate out your campaigns and ad groups. And I think it definitely can be. For example, if you sell to an audience like women's clothing and you want to target that specific gender and specific age range and you want to organize your campaigns that way, if it works better for your business, it's definitely a good strategy. And as far as benefit-based structure, I'm not exactly sure what you mean there. I'm assuming maybe products or services or some type of keywords that perform better. So that's definitely something that you could have a campaign with your higher performing products or services, if that's something that would apply better for your business. But definitely, your CS rep can guide you in the right direction if you're having trouble trying to figure out what kind of structure you want to go with.
We've got another question here. What would you recommend to do daily? For example, would you check your results? Would you add negative keywords, check your costs, etc.? You don't want to be doing too much every single day within your account. Anytime you make changes to your account, Google needs a little bit of time to sort of recalibrate. So in that sense, you want to give Google a little bit of time to get used to the way that you have kind of almost restructured or made changes. And that's true of anything such as like adding new keywords, maybe testing out some new ad copy, even something like adjusting bids. I usually recommend giving it at least a week or so before you really decide how to act further on it. There's nothing wrong with monitoring the performance or the effect of those changes on a daily basis. Certainly good to be active in the account, but in terms of making further changes, you want to kind of keep that a little bit more sporadic. So one thing you could potentially do on a daily basis is take a look at like your search query data, and you can use QueryStream for that. It's always good to be monitoring how your keywords are getting matched up with actual search queries to the point of maybe adding some negatives out of that search query data, potentially adding some new keywords. But certainly you don't want to go too crazy on a daily basis there.
So we're getting a question in. I have a contractor that operates across several telephone area codes. Any suggestions for that? You could go ahead and create different campaigns in regards to the different area codes you have and kind of just hyper target those areas.
Yeah, with those types of campaigns, because you're going to be targeting such a limited area, I wouldn't expect a ton of volume, but if you really do want to target properly, it makes the most sense to either set up like a zip code targeting campaign, or you can even set like a radius off of a specific zip code or town just to be able to capture impressions and clicks only from those areas.
We have another question coming in from Ted. He's wondering if you should mix keyword match types within the same ad group, or if you should split those different match types into separate ad groups. Do you have a recommendation? I believe it's best to mix those up in the same ad groups. I don't really think it's necessary to have separate ad groups for your separate match types. I have seen this strategy before, and it can work, but I mean, it's really not necessary. It's best to focus on relevancy. With having a mix of match types in the same ad group, like I said before, you want to bid a little bit higher on more restrictive match types. So bidding a little bit higher on, if you have the same keyword on exact as well as modified broad or phrase, you want to bid a little bit higher the more restrictive you get. So higher on exact, higher on phrase than the modified broad one. So just making sure, to be careful about how much you're bidding on each match type is the more important thing there.
Another question here, which metrics such as quality score, click-through rate, clicks, impressions do you focus on when you first start building out a campaign? For me personally, I like to see that my new campaigns are at least getting impressions and clicks, like I'm getting the volume. And at that point, I can start to take a look at search query data and make sure that I'm targeting it properly. So those are the two metrics I like to look at. Quality score is a little bit difficult. Obviously, everybody wants to have a good quality score, but Google can take quite a while before you actually see an accurate quality score for your keywords and ads. Like when you first set up a campaign, Google's going to give you sort of like an arbitrary quality score, and then once you start getting that click and impression data in, the quality score will start to update more accurately, and that can take a few weeks sometimes. So we have worked with customers before who get a little bit frustrated because they don't see their quality scores improve, overnight or within a few days. It's something we like to make sure that everybody knows is that quality score can take a while sometimes to update. So we always encourage everybody to be a little bit patient with that. To answer your question, I like to take a look at my keywords just to make sure that they're getting clicks and impressions, and then start to make adjustments off of those. We have time for maybe like one or two more questions here. Regarding your ad groups, what is the ratio of mobile to non-mobile text ads? So it's recommended to have between 2 to 4 ads in a single ad group, but that doesn't include your mobile preferred ads. And real quick, the difference between the two really isn't very large. Ideally with your mobile preferred ads, those ads are strictly and exclusively going to only be shown for mobile searches, and you ideally want to have those ads point to a mobile optimized landing page, as well as try to have a phone call centric call to action because that person's already on their mobile phone. So it's recommended to have between 2 to 4 like desktop optimized ads, and then maybe 1 or 2 at the very, very maximum mobile ads. I usually stick with 1 mobile ad and maybe like 3 desktop ads for any ad group that I work on.
And it looks like we had a follow-up question on that. Doesn't that depend on the age group you're targeting? So 70-year-olds don't do mobile ads as much as 20-year-olds. Definitely a good point there. I would actually look into the data around what searches you're getting from mobile. So it is something that you can look at in WordStream. You have an ability to segment. Under Managed PPC, you can segment by device. And then you can see, how many percent, what percentage of searches you're getting from mobile versus desktop versus tablets as well. So that can kind of help you determine, how important mobile is to you. If you're not seeing any traffic from mobile, then you might even want to just exclude that audience completely. So making a mobile bid adjustment of -100 to, exclude that audience. But if that's something you need help kind of figuring out where to get that data, your rep can definitely, assist you with that as well. But that's how I would make those decisions, is really by looking into, kind of how important mobile is to your account. Yeah,
kind of hopping off of that as well. If you know from a business perspective that mobile just doesn't make sense for you, if you're more like B2B, where mobile searches just aren't quite as prevalent, you may not even need to wait for mobile data. If your campaigns have already been running, certainly segment your device data, as Margot mentioned, but you may know right off the bat that mobile just doesn't make sense, and you can proactively set your mobile bid adjustment to not target that mobile traffic anymore. We thank you guys so much for your time. Let your CS rep know if you have any further questions, and yeah, we hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.